Okay, thank you, Ricky, and thank you, Yvette. So welcome along to class this morning, everybody. And those of you online, welcome. As you can see, we're doing this program called Presenting the Path. And can I say, I'll try and make it as comprehensive as possible, but not so deep that you get lost in it. So we begin, as we normally do, by taking refuge together and generating the mind of enlightenment. So it requires that we sort of adjust our posture so we feel quite comfortable in our seats. And we begin by just breathing normally and naturally. And so we're doing this just to calm the mind and body down and to be present. So please get comfortable in your seat. And as you breathe normally and naturally, be aware of that. So you're feeling the body breathe itself. And while you are aware of the body breathing itself, you can also imagine the appearance of Shakyamuni Buddha and all the spiritual guides before you, radiant with golden light. And you can picture that your parents and every other sentient being is seated surrounding you. And then accept our shared desires for happiness and freedom. And that we as sentient beings and our wish for happiness exist interdependently as agent, object, and action. And being dependent upon each other, our existence as separate, objective, and independent is an illusion. So imagine possessing a wisdom that sees beyond the illusion of dualistic appearances. And that this wisdom is combined with love and compassion, and you possess that. Now, if you could generate this wisdom, you'd sort of abandon the ridiculous ideas of indifference and attachment. And you might even place your life direction towards the three rare sublime ones. These being the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. So thinking that you wish to develop your wisdom and your compassion and all of your skills, benefit yourself and others. Join me in saying, I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. And in response to this petition of ours, imagine that colorful nectars and lights shower down from the radiant beings of the refuge field They wash over you and over all the people surrounding you. And our wrong views, our arrogance, and our selfishness are washed away. And our body, speech, and mind return to their natural state. And having been cleansed by our wisdom and love, we recollect the four immeasurable thoughts of compassion, love, joy, and equanimity. And we decide to develop these ourselves and to establish all beings in those four immeasurable states. And so we say, may all sentient beings have happiness and its causes. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and its causes. May all sentient beings never be separated from the happiness that is without suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from the bias of attachment for friends and hatred for enemies. And in response to this wish of ours, colourful nectars and lights shower down from the radiant beings in the refuge field. And the remnants of malice, personal distress, overexcitement, indifference and apathy, which have hindered our spiritual growth, are washed away. And cleansed by wisdom and compassion, we return to our natural state. And with a smile upon your face, and remembering the shining examples of the good deeds above us, our deities of refuge, we recollect the path to enlightenment. And wishing to gather the two accumulations of merit and wisdom to become enlightened, please join me in reciting the path to enlightenment as it's presented by Lama Tsongkhapa. So we'll just go through this, say it in your own time, as loud as you like, as soft as you like, whatever. It's just a way of imprinting the mind with the complete path. So the foundation of all good qualities is the kind and venerable Guru. Correct devotion to him is the root of the path. By clearly seeing this and applying great effort, please bless me to rely upon him with great respect. Understanding that the precious freedom of this rebirth is found only once, is greatly meaningful and is difficult to find again. Please bless me to generate the mind that unceasingly day and night takes its essence. This life is as impermanent as a water bubble. Remember how quickly it decays and death comes. After death, just like a shadow follows the body, the results of black and white karma follow. Finding firm and definite conviction in this, please bless me to always be careful to abandon even the slightest negativities and accomplish all virtuous deeds. Seeking samsaric pleasures is the door to all suffering. They are uncertain and cannot be relied upon. Recognizing these shortcomings, please bless me to generate the strong wish for the bliss of liberation. Led by this pure thought, mindfulness, alertness, and great caution arise. The root of the teachings is keeping the Pratimoksha vows. Please bless me to accomplish this essential practice. Just as I have fallen into the sea of samsara, so have all mother migratory beings. Please bless me to see this, train in supreme bodhicitta, and bear the responsibility of freeing migratory beings. Even if I develop only bodhicitta, but I don't practice the three types of morality, I will not achieve enlightenment. With my clear recognition of this, please bless me to practice the bodhisattva vows with great energy. Once I have pacified distractions, the wrong objects, and correctly analyzed the meaning of reality, please bless me to generate quickly within my mind stream the unified path of karma abiding and special insight. Having become a pure vessel by training in the general path, please bless me to enter the holy gateway of the fortunate ones, the supreme Vajra vehicle. At that time, the basis of accomplishing the two attainments is keeping pure vows and samadhi. As I have become firmly convinced of this, please bless me to protect these vows and pledges like my life. Then, having realized the importance of the two stages, the essence of the Vajrayana, by practicing with great energy, never giving up the four sessions, please bless me to realize the teachings of the Holy Guru. Like that, may the Gurus who show the noble path and the spiritual friends who practice it have long lives. Please bless me to pacify completely all outer and inner hindrances. In all my lives, never separated from perfect Gurus, may I enjoy the magnificent Dharma. By completing the qualities of the stages and paths, may I quickly attain the state of Vajradhara. So I just think that the realizations of all these verses sort of pour into your mental consciousness. I think that the mind has adopted all these stages of the path to enlightenment. And if you're able to take the essential meaning of each stage of the path and put it into practice in your life. And now breathing deeply through your nostrils. Exhale through your mouth. Allow your eyes to flutter open if they're closed. And just move your body, move your hands, feet, shoulders, in whichever way you'd like, until again you feel quite relaxed and comfortable. Yeah. Okay, so let's begin. Let's have a look at what we're going to do. So we've got this course called Presenting the Path, and our outline is like this. We're going to go through like 10 weeks in total. As you can see, we have 8 classes of actual teachings. Then there'll be a review class and a game that we'll play together, a sort of exercise to encourage understanding called From Afflictions to Perfections. As we go through the course, I'll present you sort of a brief history of the Buddha Dharma. We'll look at the life story of the Buddha and each of these 14 stages of the path. And there's this meditation we'll be going through, which I hope you'll be able to memorize over time. And today, we're going to be looking at the sort of a history of the Buddha Dharma. So look at Dharma in India, the spread of it. So it moves into Tibet, finally come into Australia, and then we'll say a little something about our centre here. Now, the way I'll go through this is quite briefly. I mean, there's a lot of material we can talk about. To help me present it and help you understand it, there's a number of very useful books you can peruse and have a look at it. Now, I've got 4, there's 9 there. I would suggest if anybody was to take any of these books up, to start down the bottom there, that book in the middle called Approaching the Buddhist Path, which I have here. This is a book by His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Venerable Thupten Chodron. And it really is a terrific book. So I'm just going to read out a couple of the chapters from the contents page. So in chapter 4, we've got the spread of the Buddha Dharma and the Buddhist canons. So we have the Pali canon, we have the Sanskrit canon. Then there's the Buddhist teachings form a cohesive whole. So that's when they talk about the 3 turnings of the Dharma wheel, the authenticity of the Mahayana teachings, and so forth. How to investigate the teachings, the importance of kindness and compassion, and a chapter that I really like, and I think you'll find very interesting, called A Systematic Approach. And this chapter really talks about how different people present the teachings, and yet how they can all be tied together. And yeah, it's really good. It gives you, it takes a lot of, if you've ever been confused about the teachings, this should bring about great clarity. There's, again, a systematic approach from approaching the Buddhist path begins on page 171. And it finishes off sort of with things called tools for the path, making progress. And then there's a section, a chapter, where the Dalai Lama talks about how he puts his practices into place each day. That's also very interesting to read. Now, for more in-depth but very readable, I'd suggest the next two books being Indestructible Truth and Secrets of the Vajra World. Now, this talks about the Buddha Dharma really from the Tibetan perspective. So Indestructible Truth gives you the history, the teachers, and the teachings of the Nyingma, Sakya, Kagu, Galupa traditions. And the first essay is tremendous. It really, for me, it blew my mind. You really go, I have no idea that people could think like this. And it shows you the Tibetan culture and the way they think about Buddha Dharma. And believe me, it's very different than the way we think. So it was shocking to me. Details are fantastic in it. It's got a lot of charts, so you can very quickly see things, timelines in it, really easily explained. Then Secrets of the Vajra World is a step up into what they call the practices of Tantra. So you've got highest yoga Tantra there and the lower Tantras. And you've also got what they call practices of bare awareness. So Mahamudra and Dzogchen. So that's everything in Tibetan Buddha Dharma. And again, I'll say it's very easy to read and to understand. It won't do your head in. But like I said, it's comprehensive. And the others, of course, they're all good in their way. Some of them are more sort of encyclopedic. Like you can see a concise history, an introduction. Yeah. But I'll say as for to start, I'd suggest those three books that I mentioned. So let's go along through this material. So we possibly stop and actually do a short meditation on something. So as you know, the Buddha was born, then he passed away. And with his passing away, they had what happened was the Sangha, the ordained monks and nuns, came together to discuss what they'd heard and how to take what they'd heard and to categorize them. So, and out of this process of categorization came a term that you might be familiar with called the three baskets. And these three baskets were just like a way of, like I said, categorizing the teachings. So they went, one basket was what they called the basket of the sutras. And that just meant this is what we heard. Everybody heard this, right? So, okay, that goes in there. It's like going to the library and going, over there's everything that we heard about. Another basket, another category was the rules for the Sangha. So they go, everybody who's ordained, this is what we do, and this is the ruling that goes over there. And then the other had another basket that came later on called the basket of the Abhidharma. So this is the basket where, or the category for teachings, where all these students of the Buddha sort of went through the teachings and started sort of breaking them down and categorizing them even more finely. It's like a sort of scientific approach. They take each thing called what they call a dharma, anything that existed, and said, oh, this will go over here. This will go over here. And but maybe this first meeting came about, this first council came about because it was sort of like a disagreement in terms of the behavior of the ordained. So some people thought it was like this and it should be like that. And so they had to all come together and discuss this and talk about it. Then, like 100 years later, they had another meeting, and this was to sort out a dispute about accepting monies. And so the Buddha sort of basically said, look, you're not to accept money. And actually also gave instructions. Yeah, the most important thing was the Dharma. But because these monks were so intelligent and so educated, many of them knew a great deal of healing technologies. So they often call upon the ordained to heal people. And this is, of course, this is a way of helping people. But the Buddha was said, look, this has to become secondary, not the major thing. And yet, of course, you know, you go out there, you see suffering, physical, mental suffering, you want to help. But sometimes some of the monks went more over towards the medicinal side, the medical side. So we had to have discussions about that. And so each of these councils was set up to deal with problems that were taking place within the Sangha, disagreements, what was heard and what was meant by what was heard. So some of the more modern ones took place, like I said, 1871 in Myanmar, which is Burma, isn't it? Used to be called Burma. Yeah. And then 1954, they had another great big meeting there. So in 1954, they covered this idea of putting all the Buddhist scriptures together. And you can see that in what they call the Pali Text Society. And yeah, so that's an ongoing project. A couple of years later, a number of years later, they revised them all. And now Wisdom Publications have put all the books out. If you want to read all about the Pali presentation, you can. Not only that, you can actually go online and get wonderful teachings from the Pali tradition also. So I'll just show you how the Buddha Dharma spread. And I've got two maps here. One like this, which I think is quite clear on the screen. Other, maybe not so clear, but this goes through it anyway. So the Buddha Dharma was sort of established between the years 320 to 420 BC. Then, as you know, so then the Greeks invaded India, and when they did, they came into contact with the Buddhist teachings. This is about 324 BC. And what came out of it, it's really interesting. We've got one book in the library that I've ordered especially, because you find if you have a look at some of the Greek philosophy, their philosophy is very, very similar to the teachings of the Buddha. One of the great teachers said, if you step into a river, you can't step into the same river twice. Meaning everything is in flux, nothing is stable, everything is changing. And there's a great philosopher there called Pyro. And that's the book that I've ordered in there. So out of him, he's got dependent arising. Unfortunately, some of the later Greek philosophers came along and all that was just pushed aside. So these guys were coming out impermanence and emptiness, but it never took hold. The major rules, major philosophers said, pushed it aside, and they went up to where we are now, inherent existence, real things. That's very interesting. And that book, like when you read that, I'm sort of wondering, wow, where did dependent arising come from? Was it, maybe Judah or the Greeks? There's a meeting place there. Then it went out of India, of course, to what we call Ceylon down there. And that was done through the king's son and his daughter. The king's son and daughter became ordained, and they think we've got to spread the Buddha Dharma. They took it into Ceylon, which is now called Sri Lanka. Yeah. And then, of course, it went into all these other countries. China, first of all, and then down into Vietnam, Korea, Cambodia. And this is all sort of long time ago. It actually went into Indonesia too. And so some of the greatest Buddhist philosophers came out of Indonesia, were born in Indonesia. One of them being Sir Limpa, and the other being Guru Rinpoche, Padmasambhava, is a major teacher of the Buddha Dharma in Tibet, as I'll introduce you to. Then it came into, in 1880, the first Westerners received Buddhist precepts. And then in 1912, the first monastery for Western Buddhists in the Theravada tradition was built. So again, I mean, is this back look a little okay to you from where you are?
Right.
Yeah. So it's between 609 and 649 that Buddhism made its first definite appearance in Tibet. It came about through one of the great kings who had been married to a Chinese princess and a Nepalese princess. And both of them were really familiar with the Buddha Dharma. It was because of these two women, mainly. They introduced the king to the Buddha Dharma. He adopted it. And so when he adopted it, this is called the early tradition, early translation. The early translation period, it's called. The Buddha Dharma was introduced by his two wives, and I think this is next, one of his relatives, the next king. Then they decided to make Buddhism the national religion of the country. But at this time, they had no language to no written script. So the written script was developed, and a monastery and ordination, all these sort of things came together over time, which I'll talk about in our next slide. So this early tradition known today as the Nyingma tradition. As you can see here, it actually came about through this king, King Trisong Detsen. So to establish the Dharma in Tibet, he had to get people from India to come to Tibet and establish it. And he got the greatest scholar of its time, called Shantarakshita. So he came into Tibet to try to establish the Dharma, but an interesting story behind that. So he was immediately imprisoned. He came in and the court just grabbed him and locked him up. Any idea why he might do that?
Politics?
Yeah, definitely politics. It was political, right? They thought that if this guy puts all this information out there just willy-nilly, people, that they might be actually overthrown. Right? So they would be really sure about what are you going to say. So that really shocked me too. I had no idea that took place. Anyway, they imprisoned them and had a big conversation with them and so forth. I guess they felt comfortable enough to say, okay, So Shantarakshita ordained the first Tibetan Buddhist monks, Sangha. And then they set about to build a monastery for them, and they couldn't. The monastery could fall down, be destroyed, all sorts of difficulties. And Shantarakshita too, of course, is still looking upon many members of the court with suspicion. And so he's going like, this is not going to work. I need some help. And I know just the person to ask for help. So he called out for Padmasambhava to come over. Now, like I said, so Padmasambhava, as I think, was born in Indonesia. And he's got to get from Indonesia like into India. And he's like known as, he's not a scholar, he's a tantric practitioner, quite a strange guy. Well versed in the Dharma, but in a different way.
But up to very recently, everyone thought Padmasambhava was born in Afghanistan.
Yep, that's right.
But actually much further away.
Yeah. And so they brought Padmasambhava over. And through his abilities, mainly tantric abilities, he was able to what we call before Buddhism was established in Tibet, they had a religion already called the Bon religion. And the Bon religion is a religion sort of based around spirits. So you've got nature spirits mainly. Shamanism, but there's another term too for how you relate to these nature gods, you might say, nature spirits. That was, and many other cultures are like this, right? You find gods and spirits in the forests, in the rivers, in the mountains. The Maoris are like that. We're like that, and many other cultures are like that. So Padmasambhava came over and right, okay, these spirits are hindering the introduction of a new religion into the country. I've got to pacify them, and so he did. And this monastery gets built, Samye Monastery. So finally, this monastery is built. And now we've got a place for all the ordained people and the monks and nuns and so forth to engage in practice. So this name, Samye, means inconceivable. It's inconceivable because when it was finally built, the grandeur of the place. It was just like a fantastic looking place to practice in. And it was at this monastery where this significant debate took place around about 797, 800. So this debate was about what type of Buddhism to accept in Tibet. Because we had the Buddhism coming back from China, and you've also got the Buddhism that's sort of been introduced into Tibet by Santarakshita. So they had this debate. We're not really sure whether this took place or not, but it's always said it did take place. And it's a really interesting debate if you read some of the history. But like, how could they debate when you've got two traditions that are quite different from each other, both called Buddhism, but they're different. So what is what they call Chan or Zen? Some of you might be familiar with these terms. This was the Buddhism that from China brought in, and then there was this other type of Buddha Dharma, really rooted in debate, philosophy. And anyway, the final outcome was that they accepted the Buddhism from India, where Santarakshita come from, and we're not going down the road of the Zen practitioners or the Chan practitioners. Now the Nyingma, so the way I've tried to do this is to first of all introduce you to the tradition, then say something about its schools and teachings, and then a little bit about the philosophy or the meditations, etc. So the Nyingma, of course, is the oldest of the four major schools of Tibetan Buddhism, and it's really founded by Padmasambhava, who they call Guru Rinpoche. So there are three major important people in Tibetan Buddhism. Padmasambhava is one of them. The second is called Lama Atisha, which we'll introduce you shortly. And then there's Lama Tsongkhapa. They're the three major dudes. So when the Padmasambhava comes in, Nyingma still means the old tradition, or ancient tradition. And its ways of teaching has got these two types of lineage called the Karma lineage and the Terma lineage. And the Karma lineage is the oral transmission. It's just like me here talking to you about the Dharma. And so that's what they do. They talk it down, they pass these teachings down to the audience. And when you get them, you have an oral transmission. The tradition has been, the Dharma has been passed on to you orally. So this lineage remained from the 8th to the 11th centuries, long time, 300-400 years. This was their major way of doing it. But then other lineage called the Terma lineage started to become more powerful and popular. And this came out of also, this teaching also came out of Padmasambhava. When Padmasambhava was there teaching, he knew that many of what he had to transmit, the people weren't ready for it. So these teachings were hidden in all sorts of different places, sometimes in the mind streams of other people that have not yet been born. In trees, in mountains, in pillars, really strange places. And later on, other people would come along and discover them, and they were there. You know, so there's really interesting stories of them going out, riding around in the hillside. This guy go, stop right now. You know, and they look up and looking at a cliff or something, right? Make offerings to the cliff, get the people come, break away the rocks. Behind the rocks, there's a teaching there. Of course, they're hearing that, you go, what? So this really took hold of the people, you know. And this type of way of teaching also took hold, so became quite powerful. So this is still going on today. We still have masters of the termers, still finding things like this. And like I said, the strange that I found is this one where he's imparted it into the mind streams of people who are not yet born. And so then later on, these people would be born, and then it's like they've already got the realizations, and out it comes. Yeah, so this is strange, isn't it? Yeah. And like I said, a lot of this is covered in that essay that by Reginald Ray, you know. So the term lineage is a revealed transmission lineage where tertons or treasure revealers realize the teachings. This began in the 11th century, and by the 14th century, the tertons were more sought as teachers than the Karma masters. Now there's these three lineages that come out of the Nyingma, and these still go on today by all the traditions. And these are the lineage of the Hinayana, the Mahayana, and the Vajrayana. And a yana is just a vehicle, is a way of, and what I mean by that is a vehicle is just another way of categorizing a type of teaching. And in the Nyingma tradition, they have what they call the 9 yanas. And basically what that means is that from the Hinayana perspective, they've got 3 types of teachings. Within the Mahayana, they've got another way of dividing things up into 3. And then in the Vajrayana, there's another way of presenting it in 3. So altogether, 9 categories you can go through. Now, one of now we come to the teachings. So the teaching I've just put up is a very, very short verse by Padmasambhava. I really like it. I just think it sums up the whole thing, all the Buddha Dharma. And so here he says, though the view should be as vast as the sky, keep your conduct as fine as barley flour. So when he says, though the view should be as vast as the sky, he's meaning don't confuse one with the other. But when training in the view, you can be as unbiased and impartial, as vast, immense, and unlimited as the sky. This is the way you see your mental way of looking at everything. But in terms of your behavior, you have to be as careful as possible. And don't get too confused. Don't think because your view is as vast as the sky, you can do whatever you like. It doesn't matter. Because I know everything. Everything's obvious to me. It's all empty, right? And what happens when you do anything, it's like, yeah, it's all empty, so it doesn't matter. This is what he said. No, don't do that. So be non-biased, have an impartial attitude. No, because all things are dependently originating, they are empty. That's fine. But empty means dependent. Be careful. This is conduct as fine as barley flour means that there is good and evil. And one needs to differentiate between the two. Give up negative deeds, practice the Dharma. In your behavior, in your conduct, it is necessary to accept and reject. Does anything anybody like to, I mean, I've gone through this roughly, if you can help.
That last point that you said seems to be something that the hippies missed out on, that second part.
That's right, that's right.
And possibly also that, like in the West, the existentialists as well.
Even in Tibet too. Even in Tibet. Because this is why later on they had to bring in a t-shirt. Because they mixed it up. Even they had mixed it up. Yeah, well, that's right.
Do they have any way of testing the detergents so that they know it's authentic, out of curiosity?
Yes, I think so. There are, this is Holiness often talks about whether they are authentic or not, and there are ways of testing. Yeah. Yeah, so it's Holiness that we like, very careful about this. He accepts that they exist, of course. But at the same time, there's a danger that the ordinary population, put a great deal of emphasis on somebody like that, because you could forge it, couldn't you?
Get carried away by the egg rolling.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Okay, so we'll just do a very brief meditation on this, what we've covered, okay? So you begin by finding, a comfortable position. Then allow your body to settle and your mind to be present. And as you breathe deeply, imagine being a witness to the vast expanse of Buddhist history across millennia. With each breath, connect to the lineage of practitioners. Chandraksita, Abhisambhava, the Tibetan kings. All of these people who preserved and transmitted the teachings. If you remember, there's the first Buddhist council. It marked the beginnings of efforts to preserve the Buddha's wisdom. In subsequent councils, addressed challenges as the Dharma spread beyond India. You sense the dedication of these earlier practitioners who are striving to maintain the Buddha's teachings. So we are part of that wisdom stream. We are connected to ancient India and the present. So you can imagine the spread of the teachings to Sri Lanka, China, the Southeast Asia, through the different Buddhist missionaries. And you can see the establishment of the Dharma in Tibet, blending with the local traditions. And then the Dharma was brought to the West. And bridges were established between Eastern and Western thought. And I take a moment to consider how the Buddhist teachings are preserved orally, how they've been written down, and also now through digital means. The Buddhist principles have been enduring across time and culture. And we are linked to this living tradition. We are linked to the Buddha. So I'd like you just to carry your own awareness of this connection to this spiritual heritage throughout the day. And now just gently return to the present and open your eyes when you're ready. I think that you're carrying the essence of this history. And then we'll have a look at the next tradition. In this tradition, so as I was saying, Baba brought the Dharma to Tibet, along with Shantarakshita. They weren't able to carry out Baba's advice of keeping what we view as wide as the sky, behaviors as fine as barley flour. So problems arose. And in response to those problems, the king at the time decided to get another Indian scholar to come to Tibet and try and sort it out. And the person that they brought back was a Lama called Atisha. Atisha was the greatest scholar in India at that time. If you have a look at his biography, what an amazing story again. So he came to Tibet, and one of the things he did was he brought with him a really troublesome cook.
Cranky
The
cook.
cranky cook. So the cranky cook would cook the meals for Atisha. And he's quite a troublesome fellow, but Atisha always bought him, so Atisha would keep checking his own mind. And he used this bloke as own.
And he was a bad cook.
So Atisha had to keep checking his own responses to this. He said, but when I got to Tibet, I realized I didn't need that cook. There were plenty of people just like him. And but to come to Tibet and teach the Tibetans, he made a promise to the abbots of the monasteries, the great masters in India, that he'd come back after 3 years. That was the deal. He could go and teach, he must come back after 3 years. So he had to do that. So on the way back, he ran into a war that was going on. And so he couldn't get across, right? He couldn't get back to India. He said, okay, I'll have broken my promise. So he said, okay, what to do? So he was in Western Tibet at the time, and he decided to write down a condensed form of the Buddhist teachings and send that back to India as a way of saying, look, I'm really sorry, I couldn't get back, but in response to my tardiness, here's a document. So this document he wrote was a text called A Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment. And what it was a summary of all the Buddhist teachings associated with their practices. So nobody had done this before. And when it got back to India, they realized the importance of this document. You know, it was as if Atisha was there. So in this document, Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment, was a foundation text for all the teachings that come out of Tibet since, in terms of the written traditions. They call it Lam Rims, stages of a path to enlightenment. So here's a picture of Atisha. That monastery where he wrote it still exists, and that's a picture of it. It's called Follin Monastery. It's in Western Tibet. So in brief, he wrote this text called Lamp for the Path. It's got 68 verses. So it's really interesting too. It's like you've got the Hinayana and the Mahayana and the Vajrayana, and it's like the Mahayana's about 64 verses of it. Right? Yeah, so you go really quickly. So it's got 68 verses, of course, the author is Atisha Sridhara. It was written in Western Tibet at the Tholin Temple in the mid-11th century. So I've put this material up there because one of the questions in the exam asked you, who wrote this text? When was it written? What's the name of it? Blah, blah, blah. Right, so, okay. Maybe we can sort of remember it here. I've got like a lamp or something. Okay, he's holding up a lamp. What's the lamp show? 68. Who's holding it? Atisha's holding it. And where is he? Well, he's in this monastery called Tholin Monastery, which is in Western Tibet. And you can see on the monastery door, maybe a big 11, you go to the 11th century. You try and work out some sort of way of doing that, like I just explained. Yeah, okay, I got it. That's called a lamp for the path, 68 verses Atisha's holding it. Where is he? At monastery, Tholin Monastery, Western Tibet. What's on the door? 11th century. Got it. Okay. Now, when he's this great teacher, of course, he's got students. One of his students is this guy called Drom Tongpa, and Drom Tongpa is a lay person. He's got all these other ordained people, but Drom Tongpa is a lay person. And he passes his whole lineage on to Drom Tongpa. Interesting, isn't it? And it's out of Drom Tongpa that the Dharma really starts to flourish in Tibet. So when Atisha came to Tibet, he was like 60 years old. He taught there for like 13 years, passed away in Tibet. And it just changed the whole place. So here are the dates. We've got a picture of Atisha, 982 to 1054. You can see Drom Tongpa on 1008 to 1064. Really good stories again when you read these lineage stories of how Drom Tongpa served Atisha. Just fantastic. Oh, we'll come to it shortly. So this is called the Ka Dhampa school. So Ka means word, and Dham means like, so just like that they would always act on the word. So you told the word, did they act on it?
So like walk the talk.
Yeah, these people walk the talk. And what was really lovely about these teachings, especially when you read them, is how down to earth they are. This school become the really, from this school, all the newer traditions come out, the Sakya, the Kagyu, and the Galupa traditions. And the Galupa tradition really comes out of this one here, the Kadam. So, you know, the school lingered for a while, but then it disappeared. But like I'm saying, it still functions in every other tradition of Buddhism that's come out of Tibet. The Kadam was responsible for the distinctive Tibetan stages of teaching genre. And it's based on Atisha's seminal work, The Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment. The genre was later adapted and popularized by Lama Tsongkhapa, his influential Lam Rim Chenmo. Now, the Kadam teachings are really about, based on meditation and study, and guru devotion, 7 limbs, thought transformation, but they also did tantra, but very simple and not like it's done now. They just had 4 deities, and that was it.
So Geshe Zopa's taught on that, and that's all up on YouTube.
Yeah. So,
Which one has
sorry?
Tara, Chanrezi,
Mioa, that's right.
Tecta,
Yeah.
and Manchushri.
I don't know. I can get if we can find out. It's not hard to if you plug it into Google, you'll probably get it. So, so one of the most important instructions is to see harmony in all doctrines and receive instructions from all teachings. These guys, if you get any of these books, let's see. I remember coming across these writings and just sort of blown away by them. They're terrific because they're like, it's presented. You can easily imagine yourself being there. They just ask questions. So this is like a great question, and then this answer. And it's so condensed and pithy. It's like if you wanted to hold on to something, you take them. And anyway, you'll see a lot of them as they're put across Wisdom of the Kadam Master, like they're all in these 3 books here.
So it's Tara, Chenrezig, Nyola, and Shakyamuni.
Okay, there you go. That's right.
Nyola,
M-I-M-Y-I.
A-W-A, and sometimes called Achala, A-C-A-L-A.
And so again, one of the quotes from one of these masters, and I particularly like this master. This guy is a little bit like, I like him because I guess he's I sort of associate with him. Right? He started off as a bandit and a robber, right? And he changed. It was really interesting how he changed too. He was trying to rob somebody, chasing them, and he shot the horse. And the horse collapsed and gave birth to a foal. The horse was pregnant, and so all those happened. The mare was still caring for the foal. And Ben Gunjal saw this, and it just transformed his mind. He said, no more. Can't not going to do this anymore. So you see, this is the Kadam Master, Ben Gunjal. So you'll come across this guy many times because he's a really down-to-earth practitioner, and he doesn't fool himself. So as you can see, this quote says, I have no task other than to stand guard at the gate of the affliction's fortress, holding the spear of the antidotes. If the afflictions are vigilant, I remain vigilant. If they are relaxed, I remain relaxed. So this quote came out as, like I said, he became a monk, but he never practiced like the other monks did. And they're wondering, what are you doing? Yeah, right? So there were times when he'd sit there and he'd just pull his robes over his head and he'd just be sitting there. This is, what are you doing? And this is what he said to them. This is my practice. Yeah, he's a real hoot, this guy, funny things he says about himself, especially. Yeah. Calling himself a thief, yeah, he grabbed his hand. There's one time, so he's in the monastery and they're all, you line up and you get your meal, right? And he couldn't wait to eat, he's so hungry. And in his mind, he's like, already participating. So in his mind, he's saying, so I'm stealing the food that has not been given to me. So he called himself out and went back to the very end of the line to go last, to get the very last of the meal. Yeah, anyway, you'll come across them because the Tibetans love to quote this guy. And like I said, Kadampa masters are down to earth. And they don't use a lot of words. I like to read that material. It makes it quite simple. This is what the practice is. So now we go on to the next lineage called the Sakya lineage. Again, really interesting stories. So Varupa, the founder of this lineage, he was a monk at, I think it was Nalanda or Vikramashila, one of the major monasteries. And he was kicked out, thrown out, because they said that like he was having parties in his cell. There were women in his cell and there was food and drink and all these sort of things, and he was having a party up there. That's what people saw. So they had to throw him out. He was the most highly realized person in that monastery, and everything that they saw, he conjured up with his own mind. He was practicing his high tantric practices in there. But to anybody who saw it, looked like the real women in there, getting out of their minds and getting drunk. Because you can't do that. So he resigned. And this is not an uncommon thing. Sometimes people become ordained and their realizations become so high, they start practicing tantra, they go, I have to leave the monastery. Because in the monastery, you can't do this. you can't have women and you can't be drinking, blah, blah, blah. In Tantra, you can do all that, but not as an ordained person. Right? So often you find people handing back their robes and they leave. So Marupa leaves the monastery, he goes down to the pub. But he's got no monk because he's a monk. Or was a monk, right? So, but they still think he was a monk. So he's at the bar and he goes, I want a drink, give me a drink. The barman says, give me the money. He says, well, I'll pay you as soon as the sun goes down. The guy said, yeah, okay. So he drinks it in, give me another drink, another drink, another drink. The sun doesn't go down. My room was still standing there, boozing away, right? He's drinking this place dry. And these guys are going like, what's going on here? And they suddenly realise they're in the presence of a great realised master. He's like held the sun in the sky.
Way to teach the people. It's like if you went down to a good old Aussie pub.
Yeah, did some sort of a miracle, right? Performed a miracle. There's another great story of Arupa too, where when he was practicing and he thought, I'm getting nowhere, when he was a monk. He's getting nowhere. So he went to the loo, he was so disgusted with his practice and nothing happening, that he grabbed his mala and he threw it into the toilet. And the mala came flying back up. Right? And it said instead, your association is with another deity. The practice that you're trying to do won't get you there. You don't have a great familiarity with it. You have a familiarity with another practice. Do this other practice. And so he did it really quickly. Progress, but then made such rapid progress, he was not accepted as an ordained person anymore, had to leave. Yeah, so there's amazing stories when you read this stuff. It really makes you sort of think and loosen your ideas up about what practice is and how to practice and so forth. Anyway, one of the other great teachers in here is this guy called Kanga Ningpo, which I'll introduce you to his teaching shortly, and the Sakya Pandita. So the Sakya Pandita, he brought the Dharma into Mongolia. The Mongols became Buddhists because of Sakya Pandita. And there's a great story about that too. So when the Mongol Khan decided, okay, which religion for our country? So he brought in all the great religious practitioners. Some of the Christian people were there too. So he listens to all the things they have to say, and he said, I don't know. Everything seems to make sense to me. I find something good in all of them, but which one should I take? So he doesn't know. He said, okay, perform a miracle. So Sakya Pandita made all the plates, the golden trays and all the food just move through space and sit down there. And that's why the Mongols became Buddhists, because nobody else could do the miracles. Right? So there you go. So again, I was like, wow. And then we've got today, and we've got the Sakya Treason and his son. So now his son is the leader of the Sakya tradition. Sakya Pandita, not Sakya Pandita, Sakya Treason, man, he's an interesting fellow. Right? So he seems to be the manifestation of Manjushri. And it's true, like you get near him, it's like there's nobody there. It's the strangest experience. So I had this myself, right? Going like, this is really weird. Being in his presence. It's like there's no one there. And I thought it was just me. And then years later, another person that was there had the same thing and said it. I was going, wow, okay. Right, it's not unusual. There's no one there. Right? It's like you go up into a room and they're not there. There's an absence. So like, I'm looking at you, right? There's no absence. You're right there, right? So he's there, but the feeling you get is that there's no one there. Like I said, it's a strange thing. That's not unusual, because like I said, I had it, and then I know another person had it. And psychiatrists has played these tricks on people. So I remember the story with this guy wanted to take a photo of him. So he's going, yeah, okay, so she's on the smile, the guy takes a picture. So this is in the old days when you had the Polaroids, right? So what comes up? An empty throne. There's just a throne, there's no person on the throne. And he's looking at things, oh, what else? Take another. So he takes 3 pictures, and the psychiatrist is giggling, right, laughing. And his assistant says, cut it out. It's like, I have photos. So this is the photo. That's in our times. Yeah, anyway, strange things happening every day. Psychic teachings are based on what we call the Lam Rim, and there's two major things. They've got the three visions, and that is in the sutra and in the three tantras. And this is all in like taking the results of the past. In terms of the three visions, there's this teaching called parting from the four attachments. And this is a teaching. If you cling to this life, you are not a practitioner. If you cling to the three realms, that is not renunciation. If you cling to self-interest, you are not a bodhisattva. And if grasping arises, it's not the view. That's all of that. There it is again. All the Buddhist teachings in one verse, 4 lines. It's all done. Again, this came out of a vision. So Kangalinpa was meditating, and then when Drishya appears, he just hears these lines. So then it appears to him, and then he starts thinking about it. He's going, oh my gosh, like that's all the teachings of the Buddha. So they've been teaching this ever since. And I went along to this teaching, given by this amazing teacher, who's the teacher of His Holiness, he was the root guru of His Holiness, the Dalai Lama. That was something else. Powerful, really powerful. And I think, didn't one of our Galupa Lamas give this teaching up at Temperance Institute?
I think Yaki
Oh, Yaki did at one stage, yeah. It was like I said, it doesn't, even though it's come out of the Sakya lineage, the Galupa can teach it. It's the teachings of the Buddha. There's no discrepancy here.
Even Venerable Trupton Children has taught on this.
Okay.
I was actually listening to this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like a root teaching. It's a great way. When I heard this teaching, there were so many students weeping. And I went to it just after my wife had died. It was really powerful. And it makes everything really clear. It's so clear.
It's a real wake-up call, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's what I thought. When I was watching it very clear, I thought everyone's woken up. They realise that they're not actually practitioners, and now they know where they are. And yet the man who taught it was so gentle and humble. But when he's in his 80s then, when he spoke, it was like thunder, like powerful, coming off that throne. But the man himself was a really frail, gentle fellow. Now we come to the Kagyu lineage. So this comes out of Tilopa. So he's seen as the human founder of the Kagyu. He taught Naropa, Maitreya. Maitreya taught Mapa, who became the guru of Milarepa. And then Gampopa was a student of Milarepa. And what Gampopa did was he took the Kadam teachings. He'd been trained in the Kadam lineage. So he was a Lam Rim fellow. But he integrated with the Mahamudra taught by Milarepa. And they still do that today. So you've got like an awareness teaching, but put together with the stages of the path. There's like emptiness. Every stage is sealed with emptiness. All phenomena are empty. So you pull the Mahamudra and the Lam Rim together. The way they do it, they've got this.
Go back for
today, yep. So today, of course, we have the Karmapa. Now, the Kagyu lineage is like, I think there's 4 of them, 4 different major Kagyu streams. And some of you might know that not too long ago, there was some controversy. This idea of reincarnation and taking the reincarnated lamas, it comes out of the Kagyu lineage. And so in our modern era, this person here was recognized as the new reincarnation, I think, of the 16th Karmapa. So this fellow is the 17th. He was recognized by Tai Situ, Yaki's guru, as the new reincarnation. But another Lama recognized somebody else. And this fractured the Kagyu lineage. But it's been brought back together because these two guys have come together now. So this is most recently on December the 4th, 2023, the two Karmapas, Organ Trinley Dorje and Trinley Tai Dorje, released a joint statement declaring that they would recognize Shema Rinpoche together and oversee his education and so forth. So Shema Rinpoche was the one who went, no, it's actually this fellow. So Dalai Lama recognizes one, a whole lot of people recognize another, problems arise. Now Shema Rinpoche passes away and dies, new one comes up, and these two guys are saying, we both recognize this person. And so now they're back together again. Yeah, in the Shema, yeah. And the other one, they were. That's right. So I think we're like this. Yeah, like I said, there's 4 or 5 different strands in this lineage. In terms of the teachings, we've got the jewel ornament. So this is the sutra aspect of it. 6 yogas of Naropa, that's the tantric aspect of it. And Mahamudra, this is the bare awareness aspect of it. So jewel ornament is great text again, one of the really early Lam Rims. And I think it begins with faith. I don't know, it begins with Buddha nature. That's his first topic. The teaching, this is the one I particularly like, coming from Tilopa, one of the, like I said, the early founder. It's what they call Tilopa's 6 nails. So again, it's a lovely summary. It just says this, right? This is how you practice. Yeah. So it is, don't recall, which means let go of what has passed. It is, don't imagine, let go of what might come. Don't think, let go of what is happening now. Don't examine, don't try to figure anything out. Don't control, don't try to make anything happen. And last, rest, relax right now and rest. And like how? Like a bee stuck in honey. Rest like a labourer sitting down at the end of a day of hard work. Try to let your mind settle with an ease born of natural relaxation. Nice, eh? So I put it like so, yeah, because there's a funny thing when you say don't do this, right? Then the mind actually goes off and do it. So try to do it in the 2 ways. It's go, don't do this, but that means actually do something. You know, like let go of what has happened. Let go of the past. Let go of the future, what might happen. Let go of what is happening. You don't think, just relax. Yeah, so you see, when you go through these different texts, some of these great masters got these really pithy sayings, and they're very easy to memorize. And then you can go wherever you are, whenever you notice a problem happening, and go, oh, what am I doing? Oh, I'm imagining the future, I'm getting more anxious. What is it? What should I do? You know, your answer's right here. Don't imagine. Let go of what might come. And I remember doing this once in a car, imagining the future, which was going to be quite bad. And I had to say, you don't know that. I just tell myself, you don't know that. You're just imagining it. Right? And that's right. I don't know that that's going to happen. And put me right at ease again. And of course, it never happened. My future was just down the road. But that wasn't the future. It all took place in my mind. Now that brings us to the Garupa lineage. So in the past, of course, the founder is Lama Tsongkhapa. And the present holder of the lineage today is the Ganden Trippa. Yeah, Kavja Jitsun Lopsang Tenzin Pal Sangpo, which Miffy just took teachings from recently in Singapore. Yeah. And if you're saying the teachings are so clear, concise, it's like a train just rolling down there, everything in its place.
Yeah, because he's very elderly now, so he was pushed in a wheelchair. He's got these really long eyebrows and just smiling incredibly warm smile and waving all the way down, and then precariously got onto the throne, and then suddenly, like you said, like a freight train, boom, hour and a half teaching, life, universe, and everything done, and everyone's just like pinned to the back of their chairs. How did that happen? It's Gandon Tree Ricochet.
Yeah.
And the name?
Jitsun, Lobsang, Tenzin, Palsangpo. Now, these people who hold this lineage, you can only do it for 7 years, and then there's a new one brought in.
Yeah, and they're elected.
Elected, yeah. Yeah, so it's not like a reincarnation, you are elected by your peers. Yeah, this is based on merit. Now, Galupa texts, so we have all of these in our library now. In fact, we've got all the major Lam Rim texts. In 2012 and 2013, His Holiness completed teachings on 13 of the 18 major Lam Rim texts. And since then, 2015, he finished off them. Yeah, so I remember looking at that going, oh my God, imagine being there. Yeah. And as a summary, like I said, we've got all of these over in our library. You have access to them. But as a summary, there's many things you can pick, but I took this one here. I really like it. And I say it every day. So it says this: from my sublime teachers and the 3 rare sublime ones, I take the safe direction. I like that. I take the safe direction. Where's the safe direction, everybody? Where's the refuge? Mine, that's right. I take the safe direction. We don't keep looking out there for happiness. Come in. So I love that, the safe direction is to go in. With myself as clear as a deity. I really like that too. So you do the emptiness meditation. You don't find a real solid body, real solid me. There's clarity. And that's me. With myself as clear as a deity, holding Vajra and bow. Again, I hold skillful means combining with wisdom. I present you with offerings, offering of practice. Upholding the teachings of Sutra and Tantra, I restrain myself from a wide array of faulty deeds. Amassing within all constructive measures, I fully benefit wandering beings with the 4 types of giving. So again, it's like there's everything there. This is what they call the extremely abbreviated 6 sessions of Guru Yoga in 4 sentences. So, okay, let's do a short meditation again. Okay, so get yourself comfortable. You're all seated. You allow your body to settle and your breath to find its rhythm. And as you breathe deeply, imagine yourself at the foot of a Tibetan mountain. You're surrounded by the pure and crisp air of spiritual awakening. With each breath, draw in the wisdom of the great masters. Bhavasambhava, Atisha, Lama Tsongkhapa, Chilopa, Naropa, Milarepa, Lakamapa. Draw in the wisdom of these great masters and release any tension or preconceptions. Now the Shakya, Kagyu, and Galupa are called the new schools of Tibetan Buddhism. And they share a common goal. which is to provide a clear, practical path to enlightenment. Each tradition offers unique teachings, yet all emphasize purifying negativities, gathering positive potential, and cultivating wisdom. This profound lineage is now flowing through you. It's connecting you to centuries of spiritual insight. Like a mountain stream, carving its path through the landscape, these traditions have flowed and adapted, nourishing countless practitioners. So how might you open yourself to receive these teachings? Allow them to transform your mind and heart. So the cyclic tradition teaches us to part from the four attachments. From this life, samsara, self-interest, and grasping. And the Kagyu lineage emphasizes direct experience and meditation, encouraging letting go of past, future, and present concerns. And the Galupa school provides a systematic approach to study and practice, integrating sutra and tantra teachings. But all traditions share the core principle of cultivating self-awareness and regulating thoughts and perceptions. By developing mental mastery, we can align our actions with our deepest values and aspirations. Our practice offers us a transformative approach to life. Practices can provide autonomy from instinct and impulse. Let us carry the wisdom of these traditions. Let's cultivate awareness and compassion in each moment. Now just slowly and gently open your eyes and bring the sense of clarity and purpose to today. Okay, so that brings us to our teachers and our centre. So our major teachers were Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa Rinpoche and His Holiness the Dalai Lama. So it was in July 1974 that Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa Rinpoche arrived in Australia. And there's a wonderful book by Adele House called
Big Love.
Big Love. So if you put your hands on Big Love, it'll tell you this whole history. So in terms of the timeline, just a brief history. So in 1974, Lama Zopa and Lama Yeshe arrived, and basically they give teachings.
I was just going to say, yeah, about the teaching.
Yeah, so they give teachings just down the road, don't they? What they call Diamond Valley.
Near where Chenrezig is.
Yeah, near Red Chivas. This is like a 30-day course was given there. And I think it was preamble to it, it was 160 acres of land were donated. And Chenrezig Institute was formed as the first FPMT centre in Australia.
Oh, outside.
Outside of Nepal too, right? Then, like 8 years later, Miffy's mother, Inta, forms Chenrezig City Centre.
So Inter went to the Diamond Valley course in 74.
You know, and she was so impressed by that course that she started up a meditation group in Melbourne, though. That turned into Tara Centre, into the Tara Institute. Then she moved up to Brisbane and established this was later called Langri Tangpa Centre. Then in 1984, Lama Yeshe leaves the human realm, and Geshe Tashi Sering arrives in 1990.
Arrives where?
It's CI, Chinese Institute, becomes a teacher at our centre for about 19 years. And it was a great story when he first came. I think that Mickey was telling me, or Inter told me, that they put a chair up on the dining room table and covered the chair with brocade, and Geshe sat on the chair and gave
Yeah,
the teachings to
and
me.
so every time Geshe would come, he'd say, that table, that was like my first throne, and here I am in Australia, and the throne they're offering me is a kitchen table, like what the heck?
Yeah, that's right.
And also, Geshe Tashi Sering was one of the candidates for being the Gandhi Trooper, but he said, oh no, I'm too old, because part of it is you have to have memorized all of the texts. And so it'd be like a couple of years worth of memorization, which he did anyway to be the abbot of Gume. But yeah, he was one of the candidates for being the Gandhi Trooper.
So then in 1997, Inter takes leave and Miffy arrives.
Inter dies, and Miffy comes back from her errant lifestyle.
And so we got to spend 10 years at the centre. So Miffy and I, we were living in the lounge room, wasn't it? That's right. We spent 10 years on a mattress in the lounge room. Each morning we'd pack it all up, and no one knew.
And the photocopier was the bedside table, like one of those photocopiers, you know, the 20 different things to do the sorting, so we could have like this multi-level bedside table.
2007, we came here through the kindness of Lam Rim's foresight and George and Cheryl's generosity. Then, only a few years ago, we moved online. And I was just looking at this, yeah, it's 2024, 3 years, have been 20 years, and by then we've probably paid off our mortgage.
Yeah, 12-year mortgage, almost there.
So a little picture. So here was against the Ricochet came. This is our original committee people. This is us. Was it the major people? Opening night. It's there's Bruce Smalley, he was our director at the time. And Christina Smurden, she was our treasurer. And there's Kinsler, of course, and I think he's got a flower in his hand. Can you see the flower?
Yeah.
Yes. Then we had to walk, we walked right around the building, didn't we, to bless the whole building.
Consecrate the building, so you're supposed to do it with a flower. So we just, because he's, you know, full on, he just grabbed a flower from one of the vases, and it was only at the end that he looked at this plastic flower. So I don't know what he thinks of Westerners, right?
This is very traditional Geshe, but very open-minded too. And then we spin around the property, and then we come out the front and had this picture taken. And this is there, you can see what this was all like. But our first altar was not Miffy, there was a table, wasn't it? We just had to just put up on the wall. And then for quite some time, we had a picture of a Buddha, very much like this one here of Lama's Rinpoche, sitting up there, and it just looked so real that nobody knew. It was actually just a picture. We put out like that. To finally, and Christina took a lot of money over to Nepal, didn't she? And came back, we got all the texts.
The kangaroo, yeah.
So it's been sort of like an ongoing building up through, you know, all of us just working together as volunteers, and here we are. It's a lovely building. Yeah, and like before it became Langri Tangpa Centre, it was a business college. It was really good because you had all this connection built into the building. Just for the age of computing, huh?
There was
Yes, Peter.
a delayed question. Angela asks, are there any recommendations for reading about Buddhism in Indonesia?
No, I don't know. But that's a great.
So I can send Angela something because we're both going to be on this pilgrimage to Borobudur. So
Oh, it's yeah, it's openly up to it. Anything interesting you'd like to ask or add or? Okay, so then.
there was one thing. So you know, with the Buddhist councils,
Yeah.
so then, I mean, you could probably add in another addition that in 2012 was when the first female Geshe-ma degree was awarded, and that was after lots of conferences, because before that there weren't any female Geshes, and so they you know had a lot to do with Venerable Tenzin Palmo and His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and so now from 2012 the first Geshe-mas, and so then the first Geshe-ma was actually a German lady.
Yeah.
And she got the degree in 2011 before they'd even officially recognised that as a degree for women.
Okay, well, we'll add that to the side.
Yeah,
It's great, isn't it?
and so since then, there was a couple of years, you know, with COVID where they didn't have the exam sittings, but it's like 17 years of study and then a few more years on top of that, and then these really exhaustive exams. And so as of like the end of last year, there's about 60 Geshe-mas now. And the reason I know all of this is because we have one coming to visit and have afternoon tea with us in September. So I've just been reading about all of that. So that's a really huge
That's right.
development.
And one of the first female issues awarded in 2012 was from Kokam as well. So obviously not the first, but you know, when they had the first ceremony, one of them was from Kokam.
Yeah, so a lot of great stuff happening there. Yeah, so I have my own mind. I have this fantasy. I decided that maybe our next Tibetan teacher here will be a Geshe-ma. You know?
Yeah, because
Why not?
Why not? More visiting Geshe-mas as well. Like, I've heard that being asked.
so in the Adelaide Centre for FPMT Buddha House, they have their resident teacher is a Geshe-ma, so she's out for 2 months each year, and in a couple of years she'll be resident full time. Yeah, but
and a really nice sort of feel to the instructions of Dharma, I think. Anyway, we've come to the end of our class. So what's our takeaway? You know a little bit about early Buddhism. You certainly know what material you can draw upon to find out more. And of course, you've always got the internet too. You know a little bit about Buddhism. You can always find out more. You know a little bit about us, LTC. And for next week, in the meantime, like I said, if you want to find out more, there's plenty of information online. There are very many good books. If you can, take one of the verses that really how we began by reciting the foundation of all good qualities is the kind and venerable Guru. Direct devotion to him is the root of the path. I'll memorize that, just that one verse. Only 4 lines in it. And next week, we're going to look at how to listen and the faults of listening incorrectly. And then we'll look at, give you a brief sort of hagiography, which is sort of a religious biography of the Buddha. So this, you know, you've all been great, you've all been listening, no one's asleep, you've got your eyes open, paying attention, let's dedicate our attention to this goal. Due to the merits of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of the Guru and Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. May the supreme jewel, bodhicitta, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline but increase forevermore. And as long as space remains, as long as sentient beings remain, may I too remain to dispel the sorrows of the world. In holding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings through exploration and practice, you wore the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable, venerable Guru, you make this request.
Also, thank you for your kind donations because it helps keep us in fabulous. You're welcome to come up and have a cup of tea and a chat.
Thank you, Rebecca. Thanks, everybody online, and hope to see you again next week. Well, I hope you'll see me. Next week.
ADC, see